Hello, my name is Nosahai Ekban, and this is my presentation for my capstone project. I'm currently in the University of Houston graduate program. I'm in the curriculum and instruction program, and my specialization is in learning design and technology. My capstone project is on developing 21st century writing skills with digital storytelling. But of course, to start talking about this, we have to talk about what is digital storytelling. So, digital storytelling is the use of multimedia tools to create and convey a story. And so, this could be using videos or pictures, audio, and different media animations and putting them together in order to create a story, whether that's a personal story or educational story. There are 7 elements of digital storytelling, and they are point of view, a dramatic question, emotional content, the gift of your voice, the power of the soundtrack, economy, and pacing. So all these factors, they all play into what makes up a digital story that one would create. And so to continue with this presentation, I will talk a little bit about my design document I created, where my statement is this. Undergraduate digital media students will be able to create a compelling digital story with the use of multimedia resources and software to develop their 21st century skills of writing. And so to put this in practice, I spoke to a friend, Ellie. She's in the undergraduate program of digital media at the University of Houston. And so I figured that she would be a good candidate for this because I actually got my bachelor's degree in digital media. And so I remember having to work a lot with things that are similar to creating digital stories. And so she has had some previous experience with video editing because it's required for all students to take at least one video editing class before they can focus on what they wanted to study. And so I talked to her about this. She's about to be in her senior year. I talked to her about this and we went over it, and she agreed to um, take some of the activities that I talked about and put them into practice into seeing how we can evaluate them, if they're effective or if they can work better. And so with my activity, at first this was the steps that they were broken down into. The major steps that a learner will take while doing this activity is first they would brainstorm their ideas, they would decide on a topic, they would write a summary of the story, they would write a full script of the story or create a storyboard. They would gather multimedia resources such as images, videos, audio, etc., and put everything together using a video editing software. They would post a first draft of their video to receive peer feedback from their peers. And after they receive feedback, depending on what they need to change or what needs to be done, they would adjust the video and they would adjust and edit their video based on that feedback. And finally, they would post that completed video on a public site that that their peers and their instructor can look at and receive feedback and reflect on their process, their creative process they used to come about this. And so with intentional strategy, I actually had to break down those major steps into had to compile them more to be shorter and to talk about the objectives of each of them. And so with deciding a topic, this would require students to use the intellectual skills to be able to brainstorm, whether that's with mind maps or with list writing and so on and so forth. And they can decide on the topic they want to do. And in this case, actually, if it's they could choose between doing an educational story or a personal story. If it's an educational story, they actually have to go out of their way to research the topic and gather information that they need. While if it's a personal story, they just have to summarize the story while they're creating their script and their storyboard so that they can come about with a coherent digital story at the end of the day. Next, they would gather these multimedia resources. So with access to the internet, they would find images, videos, audio, content that's relevant to the digital story and put everything together using an editing software. And they would compile this together to create a first draft. That first draft is what they will receive feedback from their peers from, and even from the professor if need be, from the instructor if need be. And after they receive that feedback, they would make appropriate revisions to their pro to their they would make appropriate revisions to their video so that they can post the final draft for to be seen by the peers and instructor. And finally, they would reflect on their process and how everything went about and how they think this activity helped them to improve their writing skills. And so before this happens, there's some pre-instructional activities that need to take place where I have to address ARCs, which is attention, relevance, confidence, and satisfaction. And so with attention, I would try to get the students' attention by telling them how making digital stories is actually kind of a first step process in creating one's own content. So this could be movies or video episodes or even like web content that we see people make a lot today. The relevance is that in this day and age, this digital day and age, a lot of people are very into visuals as opposed to reading text. And so the relevance of this is that it could actually help them to be able to create their own content that other people would be interested in. The confidence I gave them was by reminding them that it's not about creating the best or most exciting story, but it's about being able to express one's thoughts. And finally, the satisfaction that they would receive is that after creating something from scratch, it's really amazing to see what one can come up with and how that would show the process of learning and growing that they've come through. And so, with this in mind, I talked to my friend Ellie and we went through these instructions together, which is why I also made some instructional material that we're going to go over very soon. And so, with these, she was able to follow them and create a very short digital story that I was able to watch and saw how she put so much effort into it, especially with having to write that down. And so she gave me some feedback on how we could make the instructions a bit more clear and a bit more, give students a bit more confidence by making it a bit less veiled as opposed to saying, make whatever you want. Maybe we could tell them to choose a particular theme or to choose, maybe make it that you can choose a personal story and do that, or an educational story and do that. And so I took that into account for future reference. Next up is some examples of the instructional material that I use for the program, for the activity. And so this is what they would look like. First, there's a little summary of what digital storytelling is, and that's a video that would explain that. Next was some brainstorming techniques that learners would use to think about what they want to do, and deciding what topic they would like to focus on. Next are some digital storytelling resources as well that would help them to be able to figure out what is digital storytelling and how they can really use it to their best ability. Next was the storyboard template that they would use when writing their script or making a storyboard, which will give them a lot of visual aid in creating a coherent story that makes sense. Another thing that was really relevant was providing resources where they can get free content to use that wouldn't be affected by copyright. So we have different multimedia resources as well as also teaching students how to properly give credit, where credit needs to be given, even when it's something that seems free. So there's resources for images, videos, music, and so on and so forth, as well as some free editing software. Most of the time, a lot of people think you have to have some high-tech software to be able to do video editing, but actually it can be as simple as something free online. So there's apps like iMovie or software like Filmora or even an online component, which is WeVideo. And so this is just an example of what the instructional material would look like for this activity if it was put into practice with a bigger group. Next is my literature review, where I went through different readings that helped in expanding more on the kind of 21st century skills that one can gain from digital storytelling. And so some of these skills, according to Bernard from 2016, was research skills, writing skills, technology skills, presentation skills. There's also organizational skills, communication skills, so on and so forth. And this was a very interesting quote that was given in pertaining to talking about writing, the how digital storytelling can improve writing skills. So it says not only in the sense of physical writing, but it definitely motivates them to stay engaged throughout because they do not need to write with traditional text, but using multimedia as an alternative. Because digital storytelling is not just about physically writing, but it's about being able to create something that's coherent and makes sense with visuals as well. Next, the multimedia product where I created a website where you can find my design document, my literature review, and my presentation all on there, as well as I added a couple of videos about digital storytelling and a link to my instructional materials that you can find. And if you go there, you can see my design document, literature review, and this presentation that I'm currently making. And so finally, my final thoughts are from this project, I was able to actually get a lot of practical experience with what it's like to create essentially create coursework or an activity and put it into practice because I haven't had any experience with teaching actually yet, but it's given me a little taste of what that would feel like. And with pertaining to digital storytelling and learning design and technology, I think that digital storytelling is a really good way for both learners and educators to improve their skill set, especially with writing. Because if you're an educator and you're using digital storytelling, you can turn your course into a gamified course where there's a storyline that's going along, and you're also trying to engage your students and keep them um, essentially keep them engaged and interested in what you're teaching. And that would help you to grow and to help students to grow as well. As a learner, this digital storytelling helps you with having experience with, first of all, video editing, but also with being able to express oneself, especially what you're passionate about. And I think that's what's one of the most important things that's important in the educational field. And so this was my presentation. Thank you so much for your time. Goodbye.